Okay, so this video today that I'm making for you is about Google Display Network, specifically having to do with the traits or features of Google Display Network through Google Ads, the targeting versus observation feature. And actually, going a step further here, how to actually milk it for all its best results or for all it's worth, basically. So how to run a Google Display Network campaign that you may be running, maybe not getting it to work well enough for you, which this video is going to help you get it the rest of the way. And I feel very confident about that. Or if you haven't started one up, something that you for sure should know going into it so that when you do try it, you know the secret, if you will, on actually making those ads work for you, because there's a big difference between normally what people that make money with Google Display Network ads do and get versus the ones that don't. So I'm going to go over what those are, at least specifically having to do with this one key critical piece, which is the observation feature in Google Display Network and Google Ads, and just use it for yourself to the way that I've done it and learned how to do it over the past few years, and incorporating my 15 years of experience doing it for the hundreds of clients that we have put together many different display campaigns for at the firm. So anyway, I have a short list of things that I wanted to cover here as to what observances versus targeting, what the differences are between those two, and actually then how to use them, and then just like the general stuff to stay away from and stuff that works, and a little bonus at the end, which is how to run a Google Display Network campaign that'll work 90% of the time for your brand, regardless of what you're selling. So anyway, getting started here. The first thing is that I've listed is, quote, the difference between targeting and observation for Google Display and why it matters. So I have just a quick definition list here. This is for basically laymen, without going into all the technical jargon and so forth that on Google's help files that they may have. If you're a little confused and actually found this video because you want a more simplistic version of what these things do, or you just saw it in your account, you quick Googled it. Targeting is just like you would think it is. It's actually what you're physically targeting in your Google Display account. This is under, when you click to edit targeting options out of the Google Display Network campaign, of course you'll see targeting and observation under the targeting settings. And if you click targeting, let's say you wanted to target people that are interested in baseball memorabilia. And that's an audience that's either there, or you can create your own custom audience there. If you click on baseball memorabilia, that option for targeting there, and you click on the radio button for targeting, then what you're going to get is your ads targeted to the people that are on that specific list, baseball memorabilia, or whatever it's set up to target. Beyond that, if you target more than one thing with your display campaign, targeting more than one option or targeting setting there within the edit targeting menu. I just want to also quickly point out, just so that you know, in case some people have not picked it up yet, that it works more like an OR function, not a AND function. So in other words, what it'll do is if you put in two targeting settings and you have the targeting radio button set up like that, just keep in mind by default, let's say you were targeting baseball memorabilia and or baseball fans. If you have both of those two targeting options selected, as I just mentioned that example there, what it's going to do is going to target people who are on the list to be targeted for baseball memorabilia, and then also baseball fans separately. In other words, or another way of saying it, it's not going to be set up like it either has to be, so it'll be on either list, your ad will show up. It doesn't have to be, they have to be on both lists. If you wanted it to be where you had, let's say, 5 targeting settings, and they have to be on all 5 of these, they are baseball enthusiast, They read Sports Illustrated. They are also interested in memorabilia, which allows you to then get you a more refined audience that's more likely to buy, or your campaigns aren't working and you want to drill down further, which is a great way to do that, by the way. I always have said on my other videos, it's not about whether your ads work or PPC works in your market. It's about whether or not you have the tools to drill down far enough to find where your ads will work for a marketable solution or product. But if you were to do that and wanted to do that, you would be set up through custom combinations. So you can set up any number of different requirements to have an ad show up. It could be, they must be on all 20 of these lists. And so this is something you may be familiar with on Facebook. This is how that's set up. But you can do the same exact thing on Google Ads and Google Display Network on the flip side, just so that you know. But anyway, moving on from that, and what this main video is mainly about, you have the observation feature in that same section. And what most people don't get or get wrong, it's not what you target here. So if you click the radio button for observation and you add a targeting feature, then what it will do for that targeting feature is it'll tell you stats of, so in other words, if you're going back to the previous example, if you're targeting a baseball memorabilia now, and then you add a targeting setting later, which is set up under the observation feature for baseball fans, all that will happen in that particular case is your ad will only show up for baseball memorabilia in that people in that audience. But what it'll do for you there at that point in time is it'll also tell you if that person's already also on the baseball fans list. It'll tell you which of the people who were on the baseball memorabilia list in which your ad showed up for were also on the baseball fans list, and how that specific list, baseball fans, perform differently. Either, it could be better or worse or about the same than the baseball memorabilia list. So you could identify, should you be asking Google to only have your ad show up if both of them at the same time, or if they were on baseball memorabilia but not baseball fans, because that's another way that you could actually set things up. You can do your custom up combinations, so they must be on this list, and not this, and this list, or it could be they have to be on this list, together. So a couple different ways you could do that, but the primary, what you need to do before you get that, if you're going to do custom combinations and really get into and are serious about making your display network campaigns work, is you set up a bunch of different observances that may not necessarily be, what you also can do, but not targeting settings that you're considering, but different traits of targeting settings or different traits that people have to identify which of the people inside your list that's working. Let's say, just going back, step back here a second. Let's say you have a baseball memorabilia business and you're targeting people that are on the baseball memorabilia list. What you could do is you could set a bunch of observances like whether or not that person's a homeowner or not, and let's say your campaign by itself targeting baseball memorabilia was getting you a 4-to-1 return. You don't know where to go with it. A really good place to go with it, if you haven't done it already, which I would be doing it right from the start if you already had this information, because I do, then you could put as an observance homeowner. And so whether or not, when you get a purchase, you could tell whether that person's was a homeowner or not. And usually nothing's for sure or complete on or off in terms of the decisions you're making when you're on PPC ads. It's always it's always gray, at least if you want to do better than average, which is going to set you up to be able to win at this game of PPC against your competitors, because you'll get more out of the clicks that are priced expensively but are always worth it if you know how to dig down far enough into your targeting settings, that you identify that if they're a homeowner, they're worth 20% more on average when they buy than if they don't buy. That particular case, and you're a 4-to-1 return, you need 8-to-1, then what you'll do potentially in that case is just say that you're willing to pay, first of all, overall half of what you were before, so you get an 8-to-1 return. But in that case, that they're a non-homeowner, you tell Google in that particular case, using what is called a bid modification formula, that you're willing to pay basically on not just the half of what you're willing to pay before, but let's say 8 times, or 20, just 20% of your original value. Now those are real accurate numbers ultimately here, but there's a point. So what these observances allow you to do is find out exactly what certain people that have certain traits within your key first targeted audience that you have is worth versus other people with other traits, and then assign unique bids for each of those sub-traits, so that you end up with, you could find out, if people are a homeowner and they're way more profitable than non-homeowner, you can either stick with that, you can tell Google you're willing to pay twice as much, so you'll get a lot more of those people inside that list to see your ad, or find out what stuff is not worth your average customer in terms of their value, and you can spend a little bit less to weed those people out, or tell Google basically what you ought to do, which is to identify what that person's actually worth, and tell Google you're willing to pay to get the non-homeowner in the previous case I gave you, but and to precisely see what that person's, how much less that person's worth than a homeowner, and then adjust your bid so that you're willing to you're telling Google you'll pay less for non-homeowner in that case, not zero, but enough. You're going to pay enough to where you'll still take those customers. You're just going to pay less for them, so that the ROI on your campaigns still end up where they need to be. So what it does ultimately, it puts you into position so that whatever return you are getting, you can eventually get the return you want. You just have to figure out what lists inside your targeting settings that you have there, which you probably got a targeting setting set up that's in the system for your exact type of customer that you have, but there's only one, and it's fairly broad. You want to find out the traits. If you don't already have stats on your customers already, you can find out through running these ads very easily and using these observances. Find out, are they usually homeowners? Are they usually, what age demographic they are? I guess that's not a part of this. Whether or not, that person's completed high school or college. Whether they're married or not married. The parental status, do they have children, do they not? How many kids do they have? Is it, depending on your business, the factors, the data is going to be different for everybody's customer list that they have. They're going to have different marital status, different education levels, parental status, so on and so forth. And you can then set those up as observances to see what it is that's each one of those individual traits match up with their normal profitable customer and which ones don't, and then adjust your bids whether that person that has a particular trait's above average, so you could tell Google you're willing to pay a little bit more to maximize, because your ads never show up for somebody 100% of the time. Your ads are competing to be shown against maybe some of your other people that are competing directly against you, so that you soak up more of the clicks, which gives you an advantage because your competition don't have that data. And then you can shut out parts of, people that have certain traits that aren't as profitable and that won't meet your standards, to the point where your competitor will then soak up those people. So you can see how you attack them from both angles. You're starving them of the most profitable people, and you're basically tricking them into taking on more of the people that are less profitable. So whereas your campaign ROI goes up, theirs does not, because they now see your ads versus they don't see your competitors' ads. So anyway, how does this, work in reality or in real life? In a real life situation, how does this work? I mentioned at the start of this video, I was going to tell you a campaign that you could set up on the Google Display Network that'll work 90% of the time, roughly. And so here's an example of a common display network campaign that I do that works 90+% of the time, and doesn't matter really what you're selling. pretty much always works. And that is, you'll first make a list of all the direct competitors that you have, or at least let's just start with 5. You can do more or less, and write down their domain names and their brand names and their company names and all the ways that that someone may refer to them. There may be that's a trade name, so on and so forth. And you create a custom audience out of the edit targeting menu and the Google display campaign that you have, or when you create a Google display campaign, you'll create a custom audience to target. You'll target then anybody who through that, and you'll list all the websites, like the URLs and all those trade names and brand names and whatever else that describe your direct competitors' businesses there, so that ultimately what you're going to get is people that have either been on your direct competitor's site in the last 30 days or so, or they searched for it recently, or a combination thereof. Mostly it's going to be people, as I found, that have been to your direct competitor sites, which means either they're in market for what your competitors sell, or they are competitors and you can try to poach those customers for yourself. If there's no repeat business, then it certainly could just be people, new prospective customers. It's better if you can, you have a repeat business in your industry, and that you can get, so that you can, because this audience that I'm describing here will be even more profitable, because pretty much everybody on that list now is a prime target. But you create that custom audience and you target those people. You got to have a really good offer that's going to be able to sway people away. People got to know when they see that ad, wow, that's what they have to be saying. Why me? Why now? It could be you're offering 30% off first customer purchase and could even say for people, customers, first-time customers of people who already work with our competitors. You could get creative with it. Or, we're going to offer you a free trial on something. Something that when they see that ad, when they're on CNN.com and they're scrolling and they see it, they want it so bad, they'll stop exactly what they were doing to go to your landing page. And then you're going to get as quickly as possible that person to take some action with them, because any action they take makes it a lot more likely they're going to take another action. So it could just be, even if you sell product, to get them to submit a lead generation form to get the offer. That way, at that point in time, you have multiple ways of following up with them versus just hoping they make their purchase. Because when they deal with a competitor, they already got a credit card saved with the competitor. It's a lot to ask for that person to, at that point in time where they were on CNN.com, get out their wallet and do that versus, immediate, just type in their email address, and then when they're later on, they are ready, they will finish up. But then in the meantime, between then and the time they do finish their initial first purchase, to get them on the hook for being a customer long-term for you, you can contact them then by email and on a personal basis, or if you can, of course, get their phone number, you can then call them, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways you do it, but that's a general premise of how those campaigns work, and they work again pretty much for any market that you're in. Anyway, you do that, those campaigns are generally profitable without having to make any more changes. But going back to what you learned here in this particular video about observations, you'll target that, and then you'll add observations for, if you have it popped up in your system already, similar audiences. And when I say similar, it could be similar to purchasers, which would be your past customers, similar to all visitors. And so you'll basically want to find out, with Google's matching algorithm, is somebody who they determine through all their millions of data points that they have through their system, somebody who they think is a customer, what that is doing for you versus somebody who's been on your direct competitor site. Is it more or less profitable? And if so, and probably more profitable, because Google, usually is pretty good at figuring that stuff out. You can see and identify how much more that customer is worth, and if that person should be on your direct competitor site and a similar customer as per their definition of what a customer that you have is like or similar to for them. Probably target both, but then more so you could say if they've been on my competitor site and they match the similar to algorithm that Google has for a prospect on their audience network that we're going to pay 20% more or whatever. Or you can find out the other thing that you can do is you could find out people that have been on your competitor site isn't very profitable, but when they are on that similar to audience list and they've been on the competitor site together, they are finally profitable. They finally do get me an 8-to-1 return on my money, which is right there in the stats for you to see at that point in time, because it's all very segmented out. That you can create a custom combination audience and from now on only target people who are on both, which is how all this generally goes. So you're trying to do through your observances is find out the traits that are strongly correlated, i.e. matching, of what a typical really good, highly profitable customer is to you that responds at a high rate, which therefore, i.e. has a high ROI in it, highly saturated with profitable customers. You don't have to waste a bunch of money advertising to people who are not ideally set up for what you sell, so that it's cost effective for you to do, and then eventually create these custom combinations which has the golden traits that you identify through the observances, so that you eventually have a super profitable customer list that's going to work and consistently generate the type of ROI that you're looking for your business. But going further there, so I usually set up the similar audiences, all I can find, as observances. Also do parental status, parent or not parent, how many children, all the different features under parental status. I'll add all of those. Marital status, same thing. Married, divorced, widowed, all those individual submetrics I'll add as observances. Education level, and then it breaks down by high school, and then it's like middle school, and then it's college, and then graduates, and all of those have a little bit different performance you'll find for most businesses, so it'll probably be the same for yours. And then I'll identify, you'll find things in there, and like I said, most of the time it's just a matter of bidding a little bit less or more to take advantage of the data that you have, but sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I don't want anything except for people who have been on my direct competitor's site and they're a homeowner and they've at least got a graduate's degree, because that combination is money. So I only want that, and it's very easy to do. And you're paying to acquire this data, but once you figure it out, it just delivers profit day in and day out while you're asleep, and the thing just runs and runs, and it actually gets more profitable over time. So you could think of whatever you're doing initially, it's just going to get you in position to profit long term. But then once you have that, it's not like once you start making money, you got to stop with this. You could refine further. You can find other audiences that work. You can try testing whatever you find out for as far as the education level and whether or not the marital status will work for it. Now, based upon that, for one audience, in combination with another targeted audience, if you're in the memorabilia, baseball memorabilia space, maybe there's the baseball fans one will work if you combine the college graduate and the fact that they are a homeowner with that list is now suddenly becomes profitable. You get the general idea of how you're figuring out what works through this mechanism most of all. But I'll add all the homeowner statuses that they have, and then all the life events. And now there's a bunch of them. A couple of them, just as an example here, you could actually tell what somebody that just had a job change is worth, and obviously for some businesses that's a lot more relevant than others. Then you can also, people who recently created a business, you can bid more or less, and ultimately then first find out, does that really matter? Is it strongly positively or negatively correlated with your typical customer that's profitable to you, so that you should bid more or less for that and set that up in your observances so that it permanently has a bid that should be lower or higher, or you're using it as a custom combination to target so that they have to have this and this and this, like I described before, or this and this but not this. So that, anyway, that in general though kind of spells out what's going on. I guess I didn't also mention, I also do, if you go into the audience insight menu Insights menu on Google, which is within the Tools section, you could find out the top 10 in-market, is what they call it, audiences. These are in-market audience targeting options, or inside Google Display Network targeting settings there, as well as affinity audiences, the top 10 most correlated audiences there on the affinity side and in-market side within the audience insights menu, so that you could right away and add all of those that they give you automatically after you've been running your campaign for some time, even when it's not set up as observation, because it's just in the insights menu. Add all those manually right away, because they're telling you these are the top 10 in-market audiences, and here's the top 10 affinity audiences that most strongly correlate with your customer base right now, and it actually tells you how correlated it is versus not. Add all those as observances, because they're telling you those are already correlated. So because there's so many different targeting settings, it'll be kind of a little difficult to find out which ones you should add as observances. Well, right away they tell you what is most correlated with your customer base, or people that are generating are turning into leads. So you just add those automatically. You add the similar audiences, the top 10 in-market and affinity audiences from the Insights menu on your account, and then all your parental status, marital status, education, homeowner, and then all the life events. And then if you didn't know much about your customer, you certainly are going to know a whole lot about your customer as soon as you've been running your display campaign for some time. And all that, by the way, can be then reapplied to everything else you're doing in your marketing. If you're running TV ads, all this stuff, knowing the fact that somebody that is your customer likes watching football gives you an idea of what TV stations that you should advertise on, and so on and so forth. Just as a side note to all this, I have clients that have used this information that they got from Google. They make money there, but then they also use it to fire up and run their other marketing channels. Because you should never have to just rely on one, even, no matter how profitable it is. The worst number in business is number one. So diversify, just like you're investing. Anyway, that goes over what are the differences between the targeting and observation, what I'll call, they're set up as radio buttons in your display network, targeting section on Google Ads / on the Google Display Network campaigns, and section of a Google Display Network campaign in Google Ads. For you, when you set that up and you go into the targeting settings, what are the differences between the two and how you use that to your advantage so you can actually make money. Hopefully I explained this well. If you have any questions about this, you can leave me a comment down below about anything I didn't cover here. I come out with a new video every day just like this. It covers a new PPC money-making strategy that I've learned over the 15 years that I've personally done online advertising, and hundreds of clients that we've managed. If you want step-by-step instruction on how to set up campaigns like I do for our clients here, in that we have to guarantee their results, you can go to guaranteedppc.com/blog to get step-by-step instructions on how to set up campaigns like this one I just described here for yourself, so that it's a lot more, it's a lot more clear. If you want to, get your handheld and just start, and you're starting totally from scratch, you want to learn a little bit more about how to actually set up things the right way and what works and what doesn't work specifically from that. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I wish the best of luck to you for doing more with your Google Display Network campaign, specifically focusing on taking full advantage and milking the observation trait or / feature of Google Display Network ads.